All right, welcome to Your Time, Your Money, the show where we obviously want to be considerate of your time and bring value because we understand your time is just as important as your money. So today's topic is going to be obviously different every week, but today we're going to be talking about income in retirement and what that means, handling some misconceptions people have about how to derive income and the best ways to do that. So Matt, awesome to see you again.
Awesome to see you, Mark. Episode 2, it's exciting. I feel like our first episode flew by, and just getting ready for this one was really exciting. I mean, my blood's flowing. I'm really pumped up to get information out. And, I want to stop for just a second and just thanks to our crew that helped set up this whole entire process. I have no idea what they're doing, but they're magicians. So I'm going to do a major shout out to the people behind the scenes, because without them, we would not be nearly as good as we are.
Especially the people editing. They make us look pretty. always a good time.
Sorry, I didn't mean to segue there, but I think that's an important thing. Sometimes people forget there's a lot of people that, pour their hearts and souls into this, and we want to make sure it's special for our listeners.
Yep, and for our listeners, we thought this was a very timely topic. Obviously there's millions and millions of baby boomers out there, and they're all retiring and getting to that phase, and we get asked a lot of questions about how do I derive income, how do I protect my income, and we want to delve down on those topics, the problems associated with it, and maybe some suggestions that people can do to just secure up retirement.
Sure, man. I think a big piece of that is fixed income, and people don't understand what fixed income means. And you retire, you're collecting a Social Security check or pension, and those dollars don't really change. But the cost of healthcare goes up. The cost of prescriptions go up. You got to go to a physical therapist. There's things that happen that you don't expect, but then they happen, and you go, oh my God, I don't have enough money. I can't buy groceries this week.
Yeah, and you hear a lot of times from clients or prospects, I should say,
right, sure.
When you start, talking to them about the services that we provide, the common response is, "I'm all set."
All set. I'm all set.
And basically, what that tells me is that it's a hedge. They don't really want to get into the discussion. And hopefully today we'll point out some problems that people who think they're all set have. And things that they haven't maybe thought about. So
you're dancing around the word, right? Fear. You're dancing around that word, and it's true. Fear is a major driver, and it keeps us alive in a lot of respects, but it also cripples us sometimes. And you can't be fearful of asking questions and being open-minded enough to say, you know what, I'm gonna ask this question and see what the answer is that I get.
Yep. So with that said, let's get into it and ask some hard questions and tackle those issues for you. So Are you ready? It's your time.
I'm ready, and it's your money.
Great. We're on the clock now, so let's bring some value to our clients and make sure that we answer some timely topics. So the first one I think that we should really discuss is obviously the elephant in the room when it comes to retirement, and that's the largest source a lot of people have, and that's Social Security benefits.
Oh yeah.
One of the things that people don't understand is Social Security. When you look at Social Security and taking that benefit, it really needs to be considered almost as if it was an asset.
Absolutely.
If you think about it, your Social Security payment is going to continue for your life. So for some people, 25, 30 years. Mm-hmm. And if you do the math on how much that's going to pay out, it's probably well over $1 million.
Oh, in a lot of cases, absolutely.
And I don't know about you, but if I had $1 million sitting in an account somewhere, I'm going to pay attention to it. I'm going to learn everything I can about it, how to invest it, how to maximize it, how it's going to last, and what's going to happen when I pass away. And Social Security is no different. Yeah. The problem is people view it as a paycheck.
Right, and they don't look at it like you just said, the long scope of, okay, if I collect it for 30 years and I make $2,000 a month, right? Simple math, 24 grand a year, 10 years is 240,000, 20 years is 480,000, right? You keep doing this, oh my God, that's a lot of money. What just happened, right? So to your point.
And I think we've probably run, I don't know how many seminars and webinars on
tons,
Social Security planning, but in this format, it's important to understand because taking Social Security isn't necessarily about getting the dollar amount today.
Right.
It can be, as part of your strategy, about how do I alleviate pressure on my investment portfolio and the have to perform rate. Because if I can get the fixed income right for a client, and I can get them at a nice high level of income in retirement,
right,
their investments don't have to perform to get to that income they need.
Well, I mean, let's think about it like this, right? You ask an average investor, what do they remember? Just like a poker player or just like any person that's ever been in the market, they remember the days they lose, right? They don't remember the big wins. They remember March 2019. They remember January 2008. They remember December 2018, right? These big losses. And then, oh my God, that's when they start to fixate on it. And so I think you're right. The taking off the pressure But what does that mean, though? Can you help me understand that a little more? What does that mean as an investor?
Yeah, well, think of it like this. Would all your problems be solved if you had 200,000 or 300,000 a year coming in consistently?
Well, I mean, I think so.
They would, right?
Cases,
If that was coming in, would you really need a lump sum of money if that was being provided to you in a guaranteed form like Social Security?
Yeah.
Right? So we want to make sure that we're maximizing those fixed sources that the federal government gives us in our retirement plan so that we don't have to rely as heavily on the investment return of our portfolio.
Gotcha.
And, people tie their age of retirement around some key dates.
Right. When am I going to turn 62? When am I going to turn 65?
Right? And you hear that all the time. And the reason being is because it's centered usually around Social Security.
Right.
The earliest you can collect is 62 years old.
Sure.
Usually your full retirement age for a lot of baby boomers, 65, 66, 67.
Right, yeah.
That all depends on the year you're born.
Right.
So everybody's a little different in that case. But most people don't realize that you can defer it past your full.
You sure could. Yeah, absolutely. You could say, I'm not going to take it right now. I'll wait.
Yeah, and for everybody who defers it past their full retirement age, they get an 8% increase in those benefits plus cost of living adjustments.
It's big.
So if cost of living adjustments, say this year, are 4 or 5%, they're going to get that 8% plus the cost of living adjustment on top of that. That's a huge move in their income, right? And when it boils down to retirement, that's all a person's worried about is that paycheck going to be in my mailbox every month when I need it? Right. So if you can move an asset class that much, that fast, you may want to look at delaying it and living off of maybe some other assets if the market's doing well.
Right. And that's why every situation is different, which is why, again, back to what you said initially, when you say all set, that doesn't mean necessarily that you're all set. It just means you think you're all set or you think you're in a good position. But having those hard conversations like, hey, how do I take pressure off my investment, 401k, IRA, whatever it may be, individual investment? How do I do that effectively, right?
Yeah, and people may want to choose not to defer, but to take at 62.
Right.
So picture somebody who hasn't done a good job of saving, and their retirement for themselves is working part-time in retirement.
Right. You could working at Lowe's or working somewhere that you enjoy.
And they want to make $10,000, $15,000 a year.
Sure.
They might have a strategy of claiming Social Security early,
right,
making a small amount part-time to get them to the income where they need to be. And that might push them over to actually go from a full-time to a part-time position and semi-retire.
Right.
Which is more exciting than working full-time.
Full-time, right. Well, because I think sometimes it changes. There's an emotional piece. Again, like the financial world, and everyone tries to make this about logic and numbers and perfection. It's not. There's an emotional piece where it's like, I spoke to someone the other day and they're like, dude, I can't do this anymore. I'm emotionally stressed and anxious at work. And that's a problem, right? If you're going to work and killing yourself, then you're forgetting about how to live and enjoy.
Yeah, and there's a lot of psychology behind retiring and actually moving to that different level of life. You have 30, 40 years of a habit of going to work, waking up at the same time. Oh. And like you said, fear, the big word, the fear of change. The fear of, I'm going to move my habit to something else that I don't know what's around the corner tomorrow when I say retire.
I mean, you said, I think a segue here to our next topic is right what you said is that the Social Security is an asset class, but not necessarily everybody needs it right away. And it's okay. Can we change gears? Do you want to go to the next topic?
Yeah, one last thing on Social Security too. Okay. Some people may not have it. If you're a government worker like a postal,
that's a good point.
In the postal service or something along that lines,
or railroad, right?
Or railroad, you have a government offset, and basically what that does is it takes away your Social Security because you're getting a federal pension.
Pension, right?
So for some people it's great, but for other people that don't have it, you have to incorporate other forms of planning into it.
Absolutely.
But that is the first strategy you should look at because your other decisions are going to be based off of whether you take early or delay.
Right.
Now, other benefit to delay, which we'll get into a little bit later, but the benefit to delaying on Social Security, it also allows you to do some planning with Roth IRAs and other things while you're waiting on that Social Security income stream to start.
Got it.
And there can be some tax efficient strategies that you implement by delaying Social Security. So it's not always a cut and paste answer. So if you're at work, right, and you hear your guys, I'm just going to claim at 62.
I'm going to take it right away,
Right? That's the knee-jerk reaction. And, we don't make investment decisions emotionally. We don't make them as an instantaneous reaction. We want to have it planned out. We want to make sure that this income strategy has, all its I's dotted and its T's crossed because we want it to be something that's going to maximize that return for the client.
I mean, you're circling around it, but the truth is, it's not the same for everyone. We have to be thoughtful and try to answer the question within the segment of information we have, right? And again, the segue here is pensions, right? You mentioned pensions. So what are pension options? And I have these conversations every day because the near and dear close to my heart are pension earners, which are police officers, firefighters, corrections officers, teachers, and sometimes postal workers or federal employees. But those are a little bit different of a subclass because the first few that I mentioned, they have these things called pensions where we know, similar to Social Security, they're never going to run out. They're going to keep getting paid and keep getting paid and keep getting paid until they pass away. And then potentially whatever decision they made is going to affect the person they leave behind. So, let's dive into pension option planning and understanding it a little bit. Most pension earners make the wrong decision before they get to take their pension choice. Like they go in because there's a process to it. You have paperwork, you got to check the box. And most times they make the decision on a whim, right? Imagine working somewhere for 30 years and you get to check the box and you don't have anybody you're working with. And you just go, okay, let me see. This one looks cool. Check. 30 years. And then after you check the box, 30 days later, you're locked in. There's no change in it. So imagine a world where you've worked for 30 years, you check the box and it's the wrong box. And then a month later, something happens and something goes wrong. And you don't know what happened. You don't know how to fix it. So these scenarios in pension option planning are critical to use the experience of an advisor like a doctor, right? If you have a shoulder issue, where would you go? What would you do with a shoulder issue? Would you go to a mechanic?
No.
Would you go to Wendy's?
Not if I wanted to be feeling good the next day.
Right? Like my shoulder hurts. I'm going to go to the mechanic, right? No, you would go to an orthopedic and you would go to a shoulder specialist. That's what you would do. So it's similar to going to an advisor. When you work with an advisor, this is good for information for someone out there that's looking for somebody, right? Whether it's us or somebody else. Make sure you ask your advisor, how much experience do you have in this particular space?
Yeah, that's very important.
Right? Good question, because if I'm a new investor, I'm just, okay, I see a name on a board. I see someone sitting behind a desk. They're driving a nice car. They have a nice suit. Oh, I'm going to sign up with you. You have a lot of money, right? You work really well. But that doesn't necessarily mean that advisor has a specialty.
Yeah, well, let's talk about why that's important, especially in pension option planning, because there's a lot of people that say they specialize in pension option planning.
Right.
But pension option planning, for the listeners that don't know what it is, right? That's where you're basically have different options. Your first option is your single life option.
Sure.
Which on paper is the one that gives you the most money.
It's going to look the prettiest.
Right? It's going to look the prettiest, but it doesn't protect your spouse. You pass away 1 week after retirement, 1 month after retirement. There might not be anything going to your spouse at all.
There could be. In most plans that you would retire from the state in, there's something. The first year, the second year, the third year. But yes, like you said, when you pick a single life, without the proper planning, nothing could go to your beneficiary.
Correct. And people that want to protect their spouse, which is almost anybody that wants to go home and be able to have the spouse open up the door and let them in.
Still be able to come in the house, right? Not going to beat up.
They're going to pick one of the joint options. But in doing that, they're taking that reduction in their pension.
Or offset.
They're offset in that pension to do that. And pension option planning is saying, all right, well, that offset is going somewhere.
Someone's getting that money.
It's going back to the state. It's going back to the organization.
If I take the single option, right? Let's do a scenario. If I do the single option and it's $5,000 a month, or I do the joint option and it's $4,000 a month, that $1,000 goes somewhere?
Yeah, it goes back into the coffers, right, of the pension plan.
Oh, I see. Got it.
Well, what are they doing with it?
Good
are
question.
They investing with it? Are they getting a return on it? Or so pension option planning looks at that difference and says, hey, maybe we can plan better with that $1,000 a month.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe we want to buy some type of life insurance
that
allows that person to take the $5,000 a month, but only pay $500 a month maybe on the life insurance, and they net $500 in their pocket.
Got $500 extra. So the real world here, and this is the crappy part, is that I've seen it happen, right? I've seen it happen where we have a pension option plan set up, and they took the single option and we have life insurance built and the person passes away 6 months later. And then I go to the spouse and I have a beneficiary check for $500,000. And it's happened in the real world, and it's brutal and it's emotional, but having that financial piece fixed and set, and now we know it's a known number, the fear goes away.
Correct. And back to my point, that's why it's important to work with somebody that knows what they're doing, because a lot of people will do pension planning, but they won't buy enough insurance.
It's constantly the half game.
They won't do the math right, so to speak.
There is a proof behind it, right? There is a mathematical formula.
Because it doesn't work for everybody.
But the emotional side is that, okay, well, I see the numbers, I only want to do half, and usually I don't know why, but in this space it's always half. Like, okay, you should do 2 million. I want to do 1. Okay, I get it, but there's a mathematical reason why I'm saying do 2 million. Because you're going to need that to get to where you need to be.
Yeah, and you're using that as an example because everybody's different, and that number may be
10 million. It could be 4.
Whatever it is. Yeah. But that's why it's important to work with a specialist that can do the math, knows the numbers, and is honest enough to come back and say, you know what, the numbers don't work.
Okay, so why wouldn't they work? And then some listeners out there say, why wouldn't pension option planning work? Here's a couple of scenarios. I'm unhealthy. I can't get insurance. I don't have a spouse. What do I do then? Right? I just have children. Yep. Well, right? Think about how many. There's probably 50 scenarios we could go through.
Or the offset just isn't enough.
The offset's not big enough because my pension's not big enough.
Or your spouse is a lot older than you.
We could talk about this for an hour.
There's a million.
I'm not going to go too far, but I'll tell you, in a dual pension household, the problems duplicate. Imagine you're a dual pension household and both people pick the spousal. At any point in time, if both spouses pass away, guess what you just did? You gave all your pension away back to the state.
Yeah.
And your kids get nothing. They get zero. It's brutal to think about, but imagine both spouses retire in the same year and both die in a car accident that year. You literally just gave away 30 years for nothing.
What a key point for listeners to understand.
It happens.
In each topic we're talking about, Social Security and now the pension, in each topic we're talking about, a lot of this planning flows into your estate planning and what your heirs get.
Right, because there's a linear piece, right?
Yeah, because if you plan your income, the correct way,
right,
for your individual situation, then what's going to happen? You're going to have excess assets that transfer to an heir.
Wealth transfer. Well, can we zoom out here? We're going to metagame here, right? We're going to zoom out here for a sec. I'm going to shout out to one of our team members, Matt Byers, right? What is Matt Byers' job on our team? He is our client liaison. His job is to make sure all of our beneficiaries are up to date. We have relationships with people. So when we work with a client, we say, okay, hey, we want to set this plan up. Not only are we fiduciaries, we're doing it in their best interest, but we want to make sure that we work with their kids one day. So if we do a great job, money is going to pass from one generation to the next. Well, we got to make sure it does it the right way.
Exactly.
That's why we have a person on our team dedicated just to making those calls. So I wanted to give him a shout out because he does a great job.
Amazing
Sidebar,
job.
but okay. Anyway, I want to
value
segue to our next topic because we can talk about this for 2 hours.
Yeah, and we've covered Social Security, we've covered pension planning. One of the other things that we get asked a lot is what percentage should I take out, or how do I take my money out? And how do I do that? And there's a lot of different ways that you can generate income off of a portfolio.
Sure.
Right. A lot of portfolio theorems rely on a certain set percentage. They say, well, you should take 4 or 5 or 6%. Right. Other ones say, hey, you know what? You can't base it off of those numbers because of risks associated with the market. And there's a lot of studies by MIT, Monte Carlo theorem, things along that lines, that white papers on those topics, things that prove some of them wrong, prove some of them right, and it's very confusing for a client.
At this point in time, you literally can find research to rebut any argument out there. I mean, in the world we live in, if I make a statement, there's someone out there that, well, I can find the opposite of that.
And then it's fact checked 12 times.
You got to go with what you know, right?
Exactly. So, rate of return or systematic withdrawal percentage is one strategy. Another is dividend based, right? Where I'm going to invest in investments that pay me a monthly dividend. Some type of investment. It could be a mutual fund, could be stocks that pay a dividend, could be dividends,
whatever.
A million different things. And then there's also the theory that I'm just going to take a systematic flat amount
every month. I'm just going to keep taking it
and hope that continues on.
Yeah, there's some positives, but some negatives too.
Yeah, and the main point is it doesn't have to be a single one of those strategies, right?
There's no perfect scenario.
It could be a combination of all of them. You can have pots of money that pay a dividend. You have pots of money that you're taking a systematic withdrawal on.
Yeah.
And you can have pots that you're taking a straight percentage on as well. But it all adds up. If we get the Social Security and the pension planning right, we're hopefully alleviating the investment.
So you're talking time, not timing.
Exactly.
Critical.
Yeah, and we want to maximize those returns as much as possible.
Yeah.
But the only way we can do that is if we get the fixed income right. That's why we led with Social Security and pension.
Huge. I mean, there's some people out there, they're listening, I don't have a pension right now. Well, that's why it's even more important that when you do start investing, you do the right things. You're working with the right investor, the right advisor.
Correct.
You know?
And there are,
otherwise you get led astray.
There are a lot of products out there that offer other forms of income.
Sure. Absolutely.
Certain annuities have income-based riders.
You know,
that provide an income stream for you.
We talk about fear, right? You say, if I said the word annuity to somebody, it invokes fear. I don't know what that is. It becomes fearful. But if I described it to them, hey, you have $100,000. I can create income that's going to last you for the rest of your life, no matter what, guaranteed. They go, I want that. It's called an annuity. I don't want that.
Yeah.
Wait, what just happened, right?
Like, I think unfortunately in our industry, there's two sides. There's an investment side and there's an insurance side.
Right.
And traditionally, they've always butted heads. But in reality, when
they're
you're doing planning, they should be married together.
With the stepsister of insurance, right? Yeah. Life insurance.
Yeah, you don't. Anytime somebody's giving you a blanket statement,
right?
Like annuities are the only thing you should get, or you should never invest in an annuity, or this fund is the only thing you should get. It's never good to give.
You don't want to do blankets, right? But the truth of it is that in some scenarios, like I'll give you an example, like the 403b space, to use an annuity to grow a 403b is really counterproductive. You know, it doesn't make a ton of sense, especially if that annuity doesn't have a fiduciary capacity, right?
Or has high internal fees.
Oh my God. I mean, it's tough for me because, again, 403b space is a love of mine. I've been in it forever. I understand it extremely well. I would say I'm an expert in that space. To have someone, and they don't even know they have an annuity, a TSA or a tax sheltered annuity, for someone to not know and then be surprised 20 years later when I look at their M&E, mortality and expense fee, and I go, hey, your M&E is 1.7. They're like, wait, what? I'm like, yeah, you've been paying that the whole time, dude. Sorry to tell you, no one explained that to you, right? Because most likely you filled out your form in the cafeteria, right? Anyways, I don't want to.
And conversely, that client may retire and go to an IRA.
Right.
And maybe the best product for that person may be another type of annuity.
It may be a different annuity, but
that provides a different
probably
benefit.
Shouldn't have been there in the first place. It should have been mutual fund based or,
Yeah. And as with any investment, it's the right product at the right time for a client. And
correct.
The product is just part of the solution to get to the end goal, which is how do I maximize retirement? How do I protect my retirement? And and make sure that we're handling that. So I think we've touched on three large topics.
Huge. I mean, hopefully we're invoking a lot of questions from listeners, and I really want feedback from people. So I know it's time.
And a lot of times these are full meetings that we spend with clients just on Social Security, just on pension planning.
My goal and hope here is that with this podcast, we can generate a live feed and get people to ask questions in the moment, and we can hopefully respond. But I think it's time for something special on our show here.
Yeah, it's time as always. It's Community Spotlight time. Excellent. This is always a fun time. This is a time where we get to highlight some local businesses in the area, and tell you a little bit about them and just the family that maybe is running it, as well as what they do and things along that line. So this week we've got Marcellus Appliance over in Schenectady. They got a location in Clifton Park. I think a lot of the listeners in the Capital District know who they are, but they're one of the largest privately held appliance retail stores in the entire region. Besides them, there's not a lot I can think of besides, like, say, a Best Buy or anywhere else where you go, and those are big chain market stores.
Sure.
Marcellus Appliance has been family run since inception. John over there is the owner. His wife Lori is involved. His grandson's involved. There's a whole team over there.
They do a lot of community service too. That's a big piece.
They do a lot of community service, a lot of give back. And what's unique about them is John, the owner, has always put money into inventory.
Wow.
So talk about supply chain problems.
Right.
He's building a new warehouse.
Wow.
To store more appliances.
So he can be ready to help people.
So they can be ready to help people. Now, that doesn't mean he has everything over there, but he's got quite the selection, quite the supplies over there. Check them out. They're over on Broadway. They're 560 Broadway in Schenectady. They're also at 15 Park Ave up in Clifton Park. If you want to reach out to them by phone, you can dial 518 381-1957. Marcel's Appliance. We're just happy to know them and and participate with them, which is a great thing. So
I hope our listeners know that we're really big supporters and advocates of small business locally,
especially locally. Yeah,
we want to support those businesses. We want to make sure we're there for them because in times of need, we need to be their customers. We need to be there and help them.
Yep,
and they're going to help us.
And service is key.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Customer service is critical.
You don't always get that at a big box store.
In the world of COVID, it's, hey, call that 800 number and figure it out on your own, right? I mean, I couldn't tell you how many times I've heard that in the last month. Yeah. Call the 800, stay on hold for a half an hour with a client, and me and the client are telling jokes waiting for this knucklehead to pick up the phone on the other side, right? Like,
yeah, agreed.
That's an easy conversation to have when that happens.
Yeah. So great spotlight on a great business.
Phenomenal.
And, let's get back into the income part of the retirement. If you want to take the next section, we can talk a little bit about that.
I'm not going to spend a ton of time on sequence of return, but I think a critical takeaway is this. Let's do an example. I have $500,000 in my account, and I need 60 grand a year because I didn't plan appropriately. I don't have enough fixed income, so I need to lean on that investment, right? I take out my first 60,000. Thank you very much. I have cash in my hands, and the market goes down 20%. Well, that's not good for me, right? The market's down. I need to take risk because I need to grow my account because I need to offset my income. So I took out my first 60, I was down to 440, market went down 20%. Well, how much did I lose? Well, I lost $88,000.
Depending on, it went out day one, maybe 100.
I could have lost more, but in this scenario, my account is now worth what? In the 340s, the 350s. Okay, the next year comes along, and the market's flat. I need my 60 grand. Uh-oh, my account's down to 290. I was just at 500 2 years ago, and now I'm half. So this perpetual problem happens. And again, I think, the segue here is we want to bucket out our strategy and not have all of our eggs in one basket as it comes to the need for driving money into our pockets, if that is the case.
Exactly. And sequence of return is really understanding how risk of the market affects you more so in retirement than when you're saving, right? We like fluctuation while we're saving because when the market goes down, we can dollar cost average.
We're gonna buy, right?
Low, right? Yeah. Buy low, sell high, right? Common sense terms you hear all the time, but very few people do.
Right. I'm gonna do the opposite. It's going down. I gotta sell. I run for the hills, right? Yeah.
But that that can really destroy your retirement portfolio if you get a couple down years of the market while you're drawing and you don't have protections.
So let's talk about
built into your portfolio.
You're saying let's talk about the seesaw, right? In a great sequence of returns, let's say I have the same 500,000, but 250 is in a fixed income vehicle, or 250 is in a fixed vehicle, just a plain old fixed vehicle, like a fixed annuity, right? Anyone could work. Just
CD, savings account,
whatever, anything fixed.
Yep.
And then the other 250 is in a variable. So the first year I take my money, I do 30 and 30. The next year, the market dropped. So where do I want to take my money from, Mark?
Well, fixed vehicle would be nice.
Oh, okay. I want to take from the fixed because it hasn't changed. The next year, the market dropped even more. Fixed again, right? The year after, oh my God, the market exploded. It's a bull market now. Now my 250 that was 175 is now 300.
Yeah.
Now where do I take from? The 300.
Exactly.
So I don't want to beat the dead horse here, but I think that's a great segue to your next topic, which is longevity. So I wanted you to spend some time on it.
Between sequence of return and protecting the assets, the common or most frequently asked question we get asked is, how long should I plan my income for?
Right.
And that's different for everyone. You have to look at your family history. You have to look at your health.
Sure.
Right. And the one thing I always say to clients is your golden years are only as long as you're healthy.
Right.
And for some people, that's 1 or 2 years. For some people, that's never. They get injured before retirement and can't do much. And for some people, it's a long time, 20, 30 years.
They could live, nowadays with the modern medicine, people could live well into their 80s comfortably, right? In their 90s comfortably.
Yep. And there's two different, philosophies, I guess you would say, on approaching retirement income. One is to front load your retirement so you have a higher income early on.
Right.
While you're healthy, you physically can do more travel and what have you.
You're going to want to get those fun years in.
And be okay with some stepped down down incomes later on when you're not as active, right? Or some people want a flat strategy where they have the same income coming in, and then there's those that want to keep up with inflation,
like kind of an ellipse.
They want continual, gradual increases as they get older, which might come from market return, it might come from other sources kicking in at certain periods of time.
Could come from an inheritance, or whatever it may be.
A perfect example, a raise in retirement might be when you reach 70 because you deferred Social Security.
Could be, yep.
And an extra 30 or 40,000's coming in.
Maybe we took a longevity annuity and we said, hey, we're going to take 500,000 and we're not going to take income on it for 8 years. And 8 years later, hey, there's my raise.
And we're going to have an income coming in for you. You know what I mean? So
there's a lot of reasons
so you
why.
have to understand what it is you want in retirement.
Yep.
And one of the things that I find, and it keeps clients, I guess you would say, open to ideas, is if I go in with a client with a maximum income portfolio and I show them the most money they can generate on their assets and their investments before
testing it, right?
Test to failure.
Test to failure.
Right? That gives a lot of freedom to people early on in retirement to be able to do more things.
Right.
Because they might be going to retirement saying, you know what, I should only be taking 30,000 a year.
Right.
But if I show them that their portfolio can support 60, well, now they have a choice. Do they want to go on that extra vacation? Do they want to invite the grandkids on the cruise and pay for it?
Sure.
Right? So that max or threshold income is very important to know for a senior. Not a lot of advisors point out what that max threshold is.
Right. Testing to failure. I think you're saying it perfectly. I love in strength and conditioning, we test to failure to know where we're at.
Yeah, and
to know how strong we are, right?
And that's the benefit to working with an advisor that understands those things, right? And we're not the firm that says always save your money. We like it when clients spend their money and have good.
I can tell you on 10 occasions right now, on 10 occasions, people have called me and said, "Hey, I have a little bit more money to put in." I said, "No, go have fun, go buy that car you want, go on vacation. You have enough saved up. You've done enough." Right?
Yeah, and I know we both hear it all the time from clients that get into their 80s and even 90s. I wish I had done more when I was younger.
Yep.
I have all this money and I don't know what to do with it.
What do I do now?
Right. I wish I had done more. I wish I could have done this or that. There's clients that delay trips, and then by the time they go on them, they can't enjoy them because they're physically not
in a wheelchair.
able to take advantage of a trip
to
Hawaii.
Hip replacement.
They, maybe they get to Hawaii, but they can't go on the nature hike and go to the waterfalls that they want to go to and stuff. So, longevity is a serious issue for clients. And, not knowing when a person's going to die, which could be the day after they retire or at
125 years later, right? Yeah.
We still have to plan for it.
I agree, man.
And that's where those fixed income sources shine, because it's a base level that we know, even if they have poor habits in spending or poor investment return, they still have something under them to bolster them up.
I think the word here is transition. When you're working and your 401k is growing, it's because you're contributing to it, dollar cost average, money every 2 weeks, right? And the market is growing and you can afford that growth. But when you retire, your brain has to switch. And I got to go from growth to longevity. And how do I protect this asset? What do I have to do?
Yep. And and we talked about it earlier, the hardest part about retiring is just retiring.
Right.
How many clients out there you go to retire and you have the fear to retire?
I'm not sure if I have enough money.
Yeah,
right?
and they don't know. So what do? They work another year, and then they work another year, and then they work another year.
And now they have cancer.
And now they have,
Right, and now I can enjoy. So, I mean, Mark, we've talked about some great topics, and, this what we're talking about right now probably could be a 3-hour seminar. And because there's so many situations, but I want to talk about taxes because I think there's a segue here that you're going to want to jump in on. But people don't think about taxes in retirement and how it's going to affect them. And especially if they have large 401ks or large IRAs. And I've seen it happen now in person. 7 years ago, I met my first client that had a large IRA. And I saw the plan unfold in front of me. And at that point in time, I didn't really conceptualize what was happening. Like, why were we talking about this? And, talking about an SUL, like a second to die policy, and doing some other things with the IRA. But now, at that point in time, the market was around 18,000. Now the market's around 33,000, whatever, points. And that IRA has now doubled. And now the RMD is starting to come out. and that person has Social Security and a pension, and their wife passed away, so they got all that other money.
So for listeners who don't know, required minimum distributions,
right?
RMD.
So now all of a sudden, this tax liability for a guy that's in retirement or a gal that's in retirement, this liability is now they went from the 12% bracket all the way to the 36 because of a $180,000 RMD or a $250,000 RMD. And when RMDs are calculated, they're based dynamically on the amount of money you have times the age you are, whatever the multiplier is on the IRS tax code, right? So you could get this massive influx of money, and you might have to take it out. And by the way, segue here, why in 2020 did we not have to do RMDs? Does anyone know?
Because of COVID.
Right? Because the market was down so bad, the government said, okay, well, we don't want to have people take their money out while the market's down. So literally the government said, hey, here's a freebie because you're not supposed to take money out of your account when the market's down.
We're going to postpone the tax law.
Right? We're going to stop. I mean, literally one of the hardest things to change.
Probably the only time the IRS has ever been stopped from taking money from somebody.
That was wild to me. I was like, wow, they're literally imploring a plan that every advisor in the world would love to delay. Let me delay this for a minute, right? But I want you to segue for the tax risk because tax brackets are not static. They are dynamic. Yeah, right? And I think there's some great planning to be done.
And this is where your retirement income planning really shows, is in your tax strategy, because we started with Social Security and delaying that. And some of the benefits of delaying that buys you time to do some of the tax strategies that people want to do in retirement.
Sure.
So some of the things that you may want to consider in retirement and that we have a lot of success with in illustrating to clients and showing them their savings and what they can do. And that's a Roth conversion strategy.
Yep.
People think that, a Roth IRA is just for a young person putting money away.
Oh, no.
But it's a very effective tax strategy in retirement. Conversions to a Roth can help reduce your future required minimum distributions. They can help reduce perhaps other tax liabilities that you have in retirement. And that's important because people don't understand taxes are like a domino.
Oh, yeah.
If you pay more in taxes on Social Security, and then all of a sudden you're paying more because of the required minimum distribution, and that gets you to a higher income level, it also, which most people don't realize, affects your Medicare.
Yeah.
There's IRMA, your income-related medical adjustment. So based on your income, your Medicare premiums could go up.
Mm-hmm.
And they could go up substantially. They can go from like the $180, $200 range up to maybe $700 per spouse.
Let's lay out a scenario, right? Lay out a scenario for RMD. 85-year-old woman goes to a nursing home because she needs round-the-clock care. She's got $1 million in her IRA because she's never done a conversion. And that RMD comes out. Does her family get it? Does she get it? Who gets it?
Well, if she doesn't have long-term care, then the long-term care company is, the Medicaid's going to probably take that RMD distribution.
To do what? To pay the nursing home for her care.
Exactly.
And that's where a lot of people, they say this, well, IRAs are protected, right? And the dollars can't be affected. Well, the RMD can. Yeah. Whereas if that same person had a Roth, and again, remember, every scenario is different here, guys. But if that same person had a Roth IRA in a nursing home, is there an RMD?
No.
No. There's nothing has to come out. So all that money can just sit there and continue to perpetually grow. Yes. So just a good sidebar.
Yeah, but that also frees up planning to perhaps do not just a Roth conversion strategy, but perhaps a LIRP. And a lot of clients haven't heard of a LIRP, but LIRP is life insurance and retirement planning.
Yeah.
And basically what that does is maybe take money that would be converted to a Roth or money that you're trying to scrape off the top, whether it's growth from the IRAs or pre-tax vehicles, and buying a insurance policy to then focus on wealth transfer and asset transfer to the next generation.
Or have some benefit access rider or something built in.
Or the perfect example is to build up a non-correlated asset, an asset that doesn't react the same when the market goes down, that you can dip into in those times. You talked about the seesaw strategy, right? A LIRP is a good alternative to that allows you on that fixed side to grab money when the market's down.
So I can take money from an IRA pre-tax and then take it out of the IRA and do something potentially better with it.
Correct.
Right. That's a LIRP.
Yeah, that's a LIRP. And that's a strategy that we use for a lot of clients. It's very successful. And when clients fully understand the benefit to their family, their eyes open and they say, wow, I didn't know this existed. I didn't know we could do this.
Let's eyeball this. And it's happened before. Let's say you turn 62 and your health isn't that great, but you're still okay. You're still moving around. And this is where the Social Security conversation plays beautifully with a LIRP, right? Let's say you have a pension and you don't need a ton of assets because you've paid off all your bills and you've been saving your money. Well, you could defer your income and say, I don't want my Social Security until 70 to let it compound. Or you could take that Social Security, which is $2,000 a month, and do what with it? You could LARP with it. I can take the $2,000 a month that I was going to get, and instead of, I don't need it, it's not just going to sit in my bank. Well, let me do something different with it. I'm still young. I'm still healthy. I'm 62. I can take that $2,000 and I can drive it into a life insurance policy that's going to have cash value that's non-correlated, death benefit, benefit access rider maybe, a guaranteed tax-free return to my spouse or beneficiary.
And if you're using it for the inheritance dollar, it's a lot better than the Social Security inheritance, which is $255.
And that's it, one time, right?
Yeah, so one time.
There's real scenarios where people, they sell short their income in retirement, and they don't realize that there's other purposes, there's other things we can do. But no, they're all set. I'm all set, right? Like that's the answer we get, which hopefully we're popping enough questions into people's heads that.
Well, I think we did a good job of addressing the issues, on this topic, and all those issues are interconnected. They're like dominoes. You're setting up the dominoes, and if you get one wrong, what happens? It stops.
Right.
And you have to understand all the dominoes. You have to understand how they interact with each other. And that's where, a good advisor does that. They bringing all the different strategies to that situation. They have the discussions with the clients, and they weigh what's important to the client today, what's important to the client in the future, and they make sure that they're putting a nice blend together of all those different strategies that we talked about today.
And you know what? Sometimes, just so we make sure we know, as a client, it's okay not to know everything. Right? You're not going to know everything all at once. Imagine going to your doctor and say, hey, ascribe the endocrine system to me. Your doctor will be like, no.
What word was that?
The endocrine system, right? Or the neurological system, or the lymphatic system. Your doctor's not going to do that. They're going to say, hey, here's what's wrong. Here's how to fix it, right? Here's the symptoms. Here's the response. How do I treat it? So that's the conversation. A lot of people want to know more, and that's great. This is why we're talking here now. The show is here to educate. So when you do go talk to your advisor, it may not be us. You can say, hey, am I doing a LARP? Right? When should I take Social Security? How much is Medicaid going to cost or Medicare going to cost? Right? So
did you review my pension?
Right. Did we talk about pension option planning? Because a lot of advisors won't talk about it. Right? They'll just leave it and say, oh yeah, we'll get to that when you're 55. Yeah. What? Wait a minute.
Yeah, well, I'm excited. I mean, we packed a lot of content in today's session, which
we're overtime, which is what the Super Bowl should have been, by the way, which was my call. I said it was potentially going to overtime, and I should have won some money on that one, but I didn't. So
well, let's get into just a quick recap before we get into our next segment of minute by minute. But obviously the recap is you got to look at all your strategies together in retirement.
Time, not timing.
Yep. So you start with Social Security, you work off of Social Security and pension, and you build that into the investment portfolio and where you need the risk, if you do at all. And then you can compound that into how am I set for the market fluctuation, how am I set for taxes down the road, and how am I going to better transfer assets to a loved one.
Balance, man. We're talking about balance right now.
Yeah, basically write down that entire line of income planning and retirement and protection of assets. And in future topics we'll discuss the estate plan and how the income strategy can play into an estate plan. But I think we did a good job touching on all the bases today.
Yeah.
So my recommendation to clients is set up an appointment with an advisor. We would love to be that person that gets at the table with you and has an open, honest discussion about your goals and what we're trying to build.
Why though? Because we care. We want to help. I mean, you can tell the truth when you work with somebody if they care about you or not, right? Because a lot of people out there, a lot of advisors, they're just a number on a piece of paper. So they are. I try not to act that way, and once I ever do, I'll probably get out of this business because I'm not passionate. But I'm passionate about this. I want to help people.
Well, exactly. Great segment. So let's move into minute by minute. Our
favorite part is my favorite part.
Our favorite part. I don't know about that, but it's a great part. Where we just cover some timely topics. You want to start off with sports? I mean, that's always a good thing.
March Madness is coming up, baby. This is my favorite time of year. You get to listen to some great commentating and see some great basketball. It's a phenomenal tournament. The NCAA basketball tournament's coming up in March, and I just love being part of something and just being part of the tradition and culture of something. And I think that they've created a really cool resume. I wish Syracuse was a little bit better. It's my alma mater, and they've won a couple national titles. I was there for one of them in 2004 But it's my favorite part of the year with basketball. Other than that, I really don't watch basketball. So
now,
March Madness, I fill my bracket out.
Now, for a lot of our viewers may not be in the Capital District area, but I always like to throw out there any local hotspots you found recently that you like, or anything along that lines.
Yeah, my kids and I have been going to Sky Zone. It's been really cold and really crappy weather, snowing and stuff. So
now that's a trampoline park.
Trampoline park, yeah, it's right up in Clifton Park. It's phenomenal. They're right behind the Regal Cinemas, and Sky Zone's fantastic. Very safe environment, awesome people. Everything's very clean. So I've liked it. The kids like it. They bounce around and have fun. So
we always like Howe Caverns.
Right? Yeah, you told me the other day. Yeah.
Yeah, they have a underground cavern with a boat cruise through the cavern, and
I remember doing that when I was a kid. I don't know if I'd fit in the boat anymore.
Well, now they have like a high ropes course for kids. They have like you can mine for gold. They have the bags of gold you go through the little river that they have there or what have you. But
whatever keeps the kids occupied and out of our hair for 20 minutes, I think that's okay. Like, I'm good with that.
Well, great session. I'm so happy to spend this time with you today, and hopefully we covered enough topics to get people thinking, and that's the main thing.
I think ask the right question is really the most important thing. That's what a great teacher does. They don't give answers. They ask the right question.
And as always, it's your time
and your money.